distributor that wants things a certain way, that, that all that could get tilled under, so there's so many aspects of it. So things is like at the consumer level for people to understand, foods that they can eat and that they're not bad, and that, or that just because it has a blemish, it's okay. It's okay to eat leftovers and things like that. But and I think, if there was less food waste throughout the whole system, then food could be cheaper too and more affordable, because there's less waste all along. So that's one thing. I mean, food banks and food pantries, you'd hope you wouldn't need them except for very rare occasions. Or things like, I think they're very important. So the example that I gave you, here's an older adult who can't walk up her stairs. So you want a program that delivers to her door so that she doesn't have to walk up and stairs to bring her groceries, and she can continue to live an independent life, So it's not just one thing; it's many different.
It's a network of problems. I like that point about subsidizing the good and taxing the unhealthy.
Yeah, doing something like that.
It's a really interesting approach. I had not considered that.
Yeah, make the junk food more expensive. It's not that people can't have it or anything, but hey, don't make potato chips, as cheap as they are. So people, a mom who needs calories for her kids will buy the cheapest. I mean, who has a very limited budget is more likely to buy calories.
Yeah, that was all my questions. I really appreciate you being here and talking with me today.
Yeah, I'm happy to chat with you.
Our second guest is Seth Price, retail manager at Sienna Farms. Sienna Farms is a family farm in its 18th year of operation, cultivating 75 acres of protected farmland in Sudbury and Sterling, Mass. They grow over 100 varieties of vegetables for year-round CSA, farm stores in the Boston Public Market and Boston South End, and for select restaurants and chefs. Having grown up in and around agriculture, Seth considers farming to be a home and lifestyle more than an occupation. With a background in environmental science, Seth is particularly interested in understanding how small-scale farms can improve food sovereignty and access. When not on the farm, you can find him biking around, reading, or learning about seeds. His favorite vegetable is onions. Hi, Seth.
Hello.
Thank you so much for meeting with me today. Could you give me a little bit of a background on what your role is at Sienna Farms and how you interact with SNAP, HIP, and just the farm in general?
Sure, yeah. So I am the general retail manager, which means I oversee our 2 farm store operations, both being in the city of Boston, within city limits. And as a general summary of what I do on the day-to-day, I'm kind of the liaison between our farm and our farm stores. And with that, I am really well connected with our HIP and SNAP benefit programs that we operate on a daily basis.
Cool. So can you explain how HIP works and SNAP benefits work under the realm of working in a community farm?
Sure. Yeah. So being a small scale farm that's participating in HIP, it's a really unique perspective, being from the vendor perspective. The way it works is small-scale farms throughout the city. I'm speaking just on HIP. Small-scale farms throughout the state of Massachusetts. HIP is a state-run program, so it's just within the state of Massachusetts. They can apply to be vendors as part of the Healthy Incentives program. And once they are vendors, they can utilize folks' food stamps benefits, SNAP benefits, they're often, named together, for customers to purchase their food. And under HIP, people are allotted. Do you want me to go into the details of that?
Sure.
Sure.
Whatever you're willing to give me.
Underneath the Healthy Incentives program, any food stamps recipients are allotted an added dollar value each month to be used specifically on just fresh fruits and produce. So whereas they could go into the grocery store and purchase more refined products, or even more storage oriented products like pantry items like rice or like pickles or condiments, the dollar at value that they're allotted through the Healthy Incentives Program can just be used towards fresh produce, whole produce. And also there's a focus with the Healthy Incentives Program towards direct producer to consumer outlets, which can all be chalked up to being like farmers markets, farm stands. There's a number of different bodegas that participate in it, corner stores. There's really a wide realm of different businesses that participate in it.
Cool.
Yeah, so definitely an emphasis on local and seasonal.
So as somebody who does work like firsthand with vending at like those stations that you were mentioning before, what demographics would you say like benefit most from like your services, specifically in terms of like HIP, like demographics, like age, gender, race, etc.?
Yeah. We certainly see a very wide array of folks that are accessing fresh food through the HIP program. And oftentimes it is most definitely like what we often see as our like most underserved communities utilizing HIP. And one most important demographic that we're seeing is a lot of like first generation immigrants that don't necessarily have that foothold in like the greater culture and space in the city of Boston to like become established. So it really helps them out. In particular, I would say about 90% of our customers on a daily basis that utilize the HIP program are Cantonese speaking Chinese immigrants.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk to you about how COVID has impacted your role and the recipients of HIP and SNAP that you do serve. So how would you say, I know we've previously spoken about how the SNAP benefits increased over COVID and then have since decreased. How would you say that has impacted the customers or the people that are using their HIP benefits to purchase from you?
Oh, I would say there was a tremendous impact. We have had a number of different customers, probably, a significant percentage, perhaps 10 to 20%, come in, especially around that shift when they were seeing that significant reduction in their benefits.
March 1st.
March 1st was the beginnings that were coming in and complaining to us, complaining just in general of this reduction, which was incredibly valid. It was a very sizable reduction. Oftentimes by anywhere from like 30% to half of their SNAP benefits were being cut on that deadline. And it was sudden too. They did receive a letter in the mail, but that letter came only about 2 weeks out from the actual deadline.
So kind of on that point, like what would you say like an equitable food system like would look like? If that's too broad of a question.
I mean, for one, I think an equitable food system would allow these folks that we see so commonly utilizing public food benefits to not even need public food benefits. I think it's everybody's really aspirational hope to see this program eventually come to an end. However, I do think that these programs do provide people with a lot of resiliency and redundancy in just being able to secure food on a day-to-day basis. What I do also think is it, specifically the HIP program, shines so much light on the power of actually building a local food system, in that there truly is no parties that aren't benefiting from this. In its putting food dollars right back into local farms, which immediately has the amazing benefits of improving local food infrastructure. On the farm that I've been working on alone, we've been able to raise 7 to 9 different greenhouses over the past year.
Wow.
Which increases our winter production by tenfold, almost, quite literally tenfold. But yeah, like it's important to step back and realize that this is public dollars that are being allocated because of a food scarcity problem. So if we are able to kind of reinvent our food system and allow these dollars to keep within our local economies and raise the value of local food, we are really seeing like this strong network come about. I don't know where I'm going with this.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Obviously, like,
it's like
you gonna want to abolish a program in an ideal world, but it still is like benefiting your farm.
It's a
like,
tremendously beneficial program. Like I truly have no complaints with this program. There is like every party involved is genuinely benefiting.
That's kind of amazing that
Yeah,
one government program
like,
is.
I think what I'm trying to say is if I could somehow transform this program into just a local regenerative cycle of people valuing local seasonal food and putting their dollars towards it, that is very much a positive feedback loop, because what that does is allows these local farms to establish serious infrastructure, which in turn builds more resiliency and increases availability of food on a local scale, which, you know, is oftentimes like really co-opted.
If you were a policymaker, if you could change any policy about like food security, would you, I don't know, like implement HIP throughout the states, or is there any other ideas that come to mind?
Yeah,
for you?
Undoubtedly, I would increase allotment of HIP to all states, which we are seeing, and there's pilot programs happening in a number of different states. I think it's worth mentioning that Massachusetts wasn't even the first state to try out this model of public food dollars going right towards local food producers. I would argue for higher budgeting allocated towards these public food programs. And what's also worth mentioning is the structure of the budgeting. A lot of these food programs, when they were initially piloted, we were seeing that they were like very discretionary in that they were allotted like this big sum of money for the entire year, so the operating year. Once that money dried up, the program was essentially done, and there was no more funds to allocate towards people. And what we're seeing now is these budgets are starting to become much more permanent and much more structured into the entire year, so that this program has guaranteed funding January through December, and it's a year-round program. No matter if the money dries up, if the money is still present, it's a constant.
Thank you for that insight. I kind of want to ask one fun question at the end. So,
hot dog.
Mr. Seth Price, what would you say food means to you? Everything in my family, as you know, very much revolves around food, and like this exact dinner table that we're sitting at is like this kind of, I would say, is like the center of the family rather than like any other parts in the house. So yeah, that's me. But what would you say food means to you?
Food means so much. When I think of it off the top of my brain, food is heritage and food is a story. I feel like I've had countless amount of experiences where I'm handling different foods or creating different recipes, and I'm able to recognize that these recipes are legacies of people in the past and, you know, the people I've come across in my current life. So I think it's undoubtedly one of like the purest representations of community and connection to one another that we can come across in our little lives. Yeah. And I mean, response. not even thinking about like the people we've had in our past, but like the people that we could be meeting in the future and the people that are in our present right now. I find food is almost always my means of connection with people. And something that's yet so little and yet so significant. It's one of those things that we all need to pay attention to, and it's all a constant presence in our life. So there's not many other things that are like that. So
that is such a beautiful answer.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for taking the time to sit down with me. I hope we can share a meal soon. That's not making it.
Come on, it has to.